Can y'all hear me? Okay, there we go. All right, if I can get everyone seated if you want and settled down. There's still some front row seats, which no one wants, but they're there. All right, so it's 10:15. We're going to go ahead and get kicked off because we have three presenters for this session, and we are in next-gen aerial surveying and mapping. There's a QR code at the back of the room. You probably saw it as you walked in, and at the end of the third PowerPoint slides, there will be those QR code will also be on the screen. So to kick it off, we're going to have Jason join us, and I'll let him introduce himself.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Ruben in the back, can you hear me? All right, very good. So Jason Schruntz, I'm the Deputy Director of the Division of Aviation over programs and planning. So kind of a new unit, new restructure. I've been there for 3 months, so if I say anything wrong or y'all have better information, feel free to override me here. Today's presentation is a collaboration between three awesome units, the Division of Aviation, photogrammetry, and location and surveys. We all have different roles in aerial photography, but we work really closely together to accomplish that. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes kind of getting this kicked off, talking about DOT Aviation, our UAS or our drone program, challenges, and kind of what's next. So the Division of Aviation is located at RDU Airport. So as you're departing runway 2, heading to your favorite vacation location, wave at us because we're waving at you from the windows. And it's a lot of fun. We do share a hangar with UNC, which is really challenging for all the state grads in the room. But we have our offices there and a hangar. We currently operate 2 aircrafts. We're the pilot and owner of the aircraft for photogrammetry and aerial survey, which is the main thing we'll talk about today. Then we also have a passenger aircraft as well for VIP flights. There are 4 core functions of the Division of Aviation. So my fellow Deputy Director, Rachel Bingham, handles airport development funding and technical assistance. So this is, we have multiple funding sources, state funds, federal funds, FAA funds, that we distribute through a grant programs, and she kind of handles that, and we oversee airport projects as well. My side of the shop handles emerging technologies integration. So this includes our drone program, our drone ops program. We do a lot of policy harmonization, and I'll talk about this more in a few minutes. We have legislative actions that we handle and use cases for advanced air mobility and UAS. We also do, as we just mentioned, our state agency flight services. Nick Short will talk more about that from a photogrammetry perspective. And then DOA also has a economic development fund that we supply for our general aviation airports. There are 72 airports in North Carolina. I should have started by that. 10 of them are commercial service, meaning you can buy a ticket and board a plane and leave from there. 62 are general aviation. So the general aviation airports are really what DOA helps maintain and support, and we provide money for economic development projects at those airports. A lot of those projects are hangar projects. Our UAS program, as you see on here, you can kind of read through. I'm not going to go too in depth. But when we talk about UAS, we're talking about drones. So these are up to 55 pounds. They can fly up to 400 feet and are really used for photography is the main use case. And more advanced ones get into LiDAR and measurements and that type thing, which the other 2 presenters will discuss more. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of university research with our UAS and advanced air mobility programs. And then we're always looking for new technologies, where this is going. And then we do support and have for the last 5 days particularly supporting state and federal disaster response, and we'll talk more about that. So these are examples of some use cases of how we currently operate. The first one there is bridge inspection. I want to take a few minutes to talk about that. We were the first state to have an FAA waiver to conduct the DOT inspection of bridges beyond visual line of sight. So we're kind of leading the charge here. I know North Carolina is known for first in flight. I like to say that we also want to be first in innovation. So we're continuing that procedure. The bridge inspection, a great example of that is the Bats Night Bridge. We're able to fly that in hours instead of days for an inspector to go out and look at that. So instead of an inspector rappelling 80 feet down a column of the Bats Night Bridge, we can fly a drone in there in just a few minutes and have full coverage video. So pretty cool stuff that we do there. These are just some of our other common use cases that have been accepted and approved by FAA. Construction sites, our IMAP program, we have a few, I think we have 3 currently, someone could correct me on that, but we're looking to purchase more of tethered drones. So you don't actually need a Part 107 license to fly a tethered drone. So we can park a truck on the side of an incident or at a bridge or wherever is having a problem, throw up a drone and display that video for emergency responders as they were coming to that scene. So that's a support that we're providing. Airport project inspections, coastal monitoring. We do a lot of, we help support a lot of monitoring of our coastline to see how that's adjusting with time and events. These are just through these images over the last couple days into the presentation. This is Hurricane Helene and what's going on in the western part of our state. As we continue to pray for those people. Just to kind of look at some of this. I know presentation later on, David's going to share, or Mark, did I get your name wrong? I'm sorry. Mark is going to share more of a video of some of these flights and what's going on. But the upper left image is I-40 at Old Fort Mountain, the top of the mountain. We had slides from both sides come down and totally block eastbound and westbound lanes. That has partially reopened and will be, I think, making progress today on that. The next picture on the bottom there is the Lake Lure Dam. It did not completely fail, but we were monitoring that closely with aerial photography because you can see the slides and the incidences on the side of the dam there. The top picture is from Swannanoa. And it's kind of the epicenter of what's going on. You can see major bridges that are just gone and what's happening. And then this last picture here is the gorge going into Tennessee. There's about a 4-mile stretch there where we've lost lanes and it's going to be shut down for quite a while. Speaking of our equipment, we have a lot of equipment as technology improves. The equipment above the line there are all what's called blue-listed drones and technology. These are approved for use on our projects. So we as an aviation unit, we do have a mobile command center. We operate all types of drones from kind of little Skydios that can take some, just good basic images, upload some videos, to the tethered units of Photokite. All the way up to higher drones that are listed more for LiDAR and project assessment type drones. The ones below the line are DJI drones. These are China produced drones. The department as a whole has quite a lot of DJI drones, but the legislation from a federal perspective is coming out that we're no longer allowed to fly China-generated drones, adversarial drones, I'm using air quotes, on our projects on federal lands. We've been threatened that we'll be fined if we do fly them from a National Park Service perspective. So we are currently kind of evaluating our fleet and updating those as we come. I'll talk about this in the challenges, actually on our next slide. So one of our challenges is that the American-made drones or the non-adversarial based drones are just quite not up to the technology standard, the ease of use, the control of flight that some of the more DJI-based, China-based drones, foreign-made drones are. So there's definitely a transition period that we're kind of having to work through right now. The other major piece of this is kind of the regulations and the restrictions. Often state and local agencies will institute restrictions that are beyond what FAA has restricted. So we do a lot of policy harmonization and making sure that we're not overly restricting ourselves from a flight perspective. Let's see what else we got. UTM is our traffic, think of air traffic management is probably the way to think about that. Is something that we deal with. Probably the biggest concern in deconfliction that we're trying to manage is drones versus fixed-wing aircraft, right? We don't want any of our autonomous drones or our non-piloted drones to interfere with any type of fixed-wing aircraft. So, but a lot of the missions that we want to fly are in very complex urban type environments. So kind of managing that conflict and working with the FAA to continue that as well. We have a lot of turnover at DOT as a whole, and having a set of pilots that can fly. The other big thing is core job function versus drone pilot operators. So we, as DOA, go out, our UAS ops staff go out and train a lot of pilots, and we have pilots stationed east, west, central, across the state, but they have other DOT jobs, right? This is their kind of their secondary request. So you got an event like Helene come through, we're wanting those pilots to go fly, but they also have their other core duties as well. So trying to manage that is what is kind of a long-term challenge that we need to work through. I'll kind of leave you here on more of a positive note where we're going. So FAA definitely realizes that advanced air mobility, which is kind of the bigger drones all the way up to an air taxi. Think of a ferry in the air, right? Like I've seen the cool videos of the eVTOLs where they kind of lift up and go out 4 to 6 people or whatever. That's where we want to go, right? But there's a lot of technology. There's a lot of corridor planning. There's a lot of just regulation that has to be developed in order for those things to occur. And FAA is wanting to get there. So we're the lead participant in what's known as Beyond 2.0, which the goal is to fly bigger, farther, and higher. So we've developed and recently approved a statewide environmental assessment in order to fly beyond visual line of sight in more locations. Almost all our urban cities have some type of beyond visual line of sight operations going already. Charlotte, UPS Fly Forward is in Winston-Salem. Causey Aviation is working in the Outer Banks. For those here in Holly Springs, you can get food delivered right to your doorstep by a drone right now. So we have a lot of test flights that are happening, which is great. We also know that AI is really changing the landscape here, and we want to be on the front edge of that as well. We want to increase operator education, and then eventually do more freight and ultimate air taxi missions here in North Carolina. So this is kind of just an overview of Division of Aviation and where we plan to go and the use of technology as we improve. Project-specific information, photogrammetry, and location and surveys are definitely your partners in that, but we support them in any way we can with getting FAA waivers and managing the technology and the equipment. So Division of Aviation is here to help, and take any quick questions before I pass it over to Nick. Yes, sir.
So what is the current licensing to operate?
So there's North Carolina had a permitting procedure. That process is actually being sunsetted because we were ahead of the FAA in their procedure. So there's what's called a Part 107 license that has to be, it's a class and a test, and I'm looking at others who might have, anybody have Part 1?
We kind of mentioned this being a pilot.
Yeah, please.
Currently for DOT, for operating drones in DOT, you have to get your FAA Part 107 license. And that's your remote pilot license. Also, you have to go through aviation and talk with Jason's people, Riley and Thomas, and kind of go through safety briefings, know a little bit about the rules. From what I understand, we had a test, and it's still active now, but it's kind of antiquated.
Right.
So I think y'all are going to work on something to get it to where our pilots will basically we have to be vetted through aviation to be certified to fly on our jobs and DOT. And one of the things I do want to mention with Jason here as far as pilot, have to be careful, and we ran into this before. Some of the people might be, we get personnel, we hire somebody and they have their Part 107, but they have been vetted through aviation. If you're in a division, you got somebody that you want to use, whatever, they need to do that. Also, the drones, they can't just go, first off, the divisions kind of need, everybody needs to go through aviation for approved drones and stuff. But the other side of that, you got an employee that's got his own personal drone, and he comes in and says, well, hey, I can fly this construction. We got to fly with our drones, anything that comes through them. So these guys handle the regulation stuff, but as far as getting piloted, you have to have your Part 107, you have to be vetted by aviation to fly on our projects and with our drones.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. What he said. Any other questions? Yes, sir. I do. So we had some demos as early as last week of some new technology that's not really even for sale yet, that we expect better quality blue-listed drones coming online. The challenge, honestly, is that they're more expensive. And that how do we go through procurement to vet that and get that acquired. So I think the technology is coming. It's just a little slower than we would like. All right. Well, I'll pass it off to Nick Short in photogrammetry, and he'll kind of walk through their services and how it all relates. Thank you all very much.
All right, everyone give it up for Jason. All right, so I'm Nick Short. I'm with the photogrammetry unit, and we're going to kind of take it down a little notch from the high-level DOA perspective and get more into surveying and mapping via aerial vehicles. So I'm going to go briefly over kind of what is aerial surveying, what it kind of encompasses, touch on some of the surveying laws and regulations here in North Carolina, because we are, I shouldn't say unique, but some other states are unique compared to us and others. Go over some common aerial surveying equipment, and then talk about the benefits of aerial surveying, as well as touch on some key NCDOT project highlights that we've worked on recently, and go over some challenges and future trends in our industry. So before I dive in, I just want to kind of give a quick little glance of what our unit does and who we are. Most folks just think we take photographs, and that is just a little piece of actually what we do. But we are not a new unit, but not a super old unit either here at DOT. We were incepted somewhere in the mid-50s, and our first mission was in 1955. So in the bottom left, you can see that is our first frame, first mission that we have ever taken as a black and white film. Since then, we've flown over 11,000 missions across the state. We're still currently flying today. And in the last 10 years, we have on average delivered about 92,000 acres per year of mapping. So some of the services and products we provide, course imagery, right? So we get a lot of our data from images, so orthophotography, digital mosaics. We partner with NCDIT's CGIA group on NC1 Map. For most folks that know NC1 Map or the statewide ortho program, we offer technical and advisory services to them and have been a part of that program since 2012-ish, 2010-ish. Of course, on the preliminary engineering side, we provide topographic mapping, shell plan sheets, and digital terrain models. You can see there, of course, DOT is our home, and about 95% of our work is related to DOT projects, but we do partner with other state agencies. Another state agency and program where we work with is LIDAR. Like Jason said, we were the first in flight in, 1903? And when LIDAR came about in the mapping industry, North Carolina was the first state to do a large-scale LIDAR program here in 2001. So another first for North Carolina, which is pretty cool. Also, volumetric earthwork calculations, that's more on the construction side, of course. So we partner with divisions, construction engineers, assistant and resident engineers to help get calculations. And then last but certainly not least is emergency response. So as you saw from Jason with all the pictures recently from Hurricane Helene, we have been actively trying to fly as much as we can out there and help out any way we can. So what is aerial surveying? So I talked a little bit about the products and kind of what we do, but essentially we are creating geospatial products and information via from aircrafts and sitting at our desk. So this can be used from like satellite imagery to uncrewed aircraft systems, drones, and then also the crewed aircraft as well. We are one of 33 states in North America that regulate as a profession aerial surveying at a state level. So this all falls under Chapter 89C that most of us are familiar with, but what we do, aerial surveying and mapping, does need to be under the responsible charge of a professional land surveyor in North Carolina. So there's some couple administrative codes and some standards and things like that that are all outlined there, but I'm not going to bore us with that today. So some common equipment. I keep talking about photogrammetry. So when aerial surveying first kind of came about, it was used very heavily in World War I and was an essential tool in that war and throughout in between World War II as well. In between World War I and II was when photogrammetry had progressed so much that the mass production of topographic maps was being created and done. And then it wasn't until maybe right around the end of World War II where photogrammetry started being used at a not only commercial level in North America, but as well as in all the Department of Transportations. So the first, of course, we had, like you saw in our first photograph we took in '55, that was a black and white film. Digital mapping cameras were not created until 2003, and DOT did not get our first digital metric camera until 2008, I believe. Another sensor commonly used now for aerial surveying is LiDAR. LiDAR really got popular for aerial surveying in like the late 90s when GPS came about. And it's been growing and growing ever since. For a long time, it was very expensive to get into, but it wasn't probably in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, especially thanks to UAS and technology, that these sensors are getting smaller, they're getting better, they're getting more accurate, and they are very, very capable. When LiDAR first came out, it was, especially in the late 90s, it was kind of seen as a competing technology with photogrammetry, because they essentially can somewhat do the same thing, create a topographic map. As years progress, the industry learns that they complement each other very well, and they both have their pros and cons. So what we're seeing now in the industry is hybrid sensors, also known as like dual frequency sensors. These essentially, just as you'd guess, capture LiDAR and imagery simultaneously. So this makes you more efficient. We've seen improved accuracies as well as being able to use new workflows and create new products. So very, very exciting times for sure. The two on the right, those are for like a traditional crewed aircraft. And then the one on the left, we also see these very common on drones as well. And that one's like a yellow scan. We get questions a lot and hear questions a lot about choosing the right vehicle. There's really no like right or wrong or guideline or rule book to go by. It's very dependent on the project site, current regulations, maybe safety concerns. There's all sorts of stuff that you have to look at. But a general rule of thumb is, of course, as your persistent altitude rises, of course, you can capture a lot more area, but your spatial resolution diminishes. And then as you come down, that spatial resolution increases, but that area you're able to capture also goes down. So there's some trade-offs there. So I just got a cool little graphic I saw a few years ago that we kind of recreated to kind of display that. As Jason talked about earlier about our current equipment, We partner with not only Division of Aviation, but Location and Surveys. We could not do what we do without those two units and divisions. On the top left, you're seeing the King Air GT C90. This is owned, maintained, and operated by Division of Aviation, and they have about 4 or 5 pilots on staff. We own and operate the large format metric camera you see. So that right there in the middle is a Vexel UltraCam Mark III Eagle. Shoots 450 megapixel images. Each image is about 2.5 gigabytes. It was specially designed in Austria, over $1 million. Very expensive piece of equipment. But not only do we partner with DOA, also Location and Surveys. They are a huge help to us and go and get all of our ground control for our projects. Also, once we do our preliminary engineering like shell plan sheet mapping and DTMs, we deliver that to Location and Surveys. So then they go in and finish out the final surveys for final design. And then recently, we've also been partnering with Location and Surveys on the UAS aspect and been partnering with some UAS projects. On the bottom right, you see Mark Ward, who's about to talk here in a little bit, as long as Mo with photogrammetry, and we are out in Rutherford County there doing some earthwork quantification with a LiDAR drone. Oh, let me back up one more. One more thing too, the top right is the 3D PluriView monitor we use. I don't know if most of y'all maybe saw it. We actually had it at our booth yesterday. I see some nods shaking yes. But this is a monitor that allows us to kind of do what we do very efficiently. We're able to perceive 3D depth from 2D imagery. We can also ingest LiDAR in there and UAS data and all sorts of stuff. And it is a very powerful tool that we use too. So it's very cool. All right, so some benefits. So, of course, like I talked about, topographic mapping, that's kind of one of the primary, bread and butter products that we do, and also just aerial surveying in general can provide. There you can see also some shell mapping where, not only are we mapping those natural features, but also those man-made features. Other common products are hydrologic DEMS, hydro-enforced DEMS, hydro-conditioned DEMS, things like tax maps, archaeology mapping, traffic management, traffic accident investigations, asset management, forestry, landslide monitoring. You see the red and blue photograph to the right. That's a photograph we took there on the coast. That's color infrared. We use that for submerged aquatic vegetation mapping, where we're actually able to see a few feet into the water and map submerged aquatic vegetation, which is very cool. And then, of course, any type of construction monitoring, particularly as it relates to earthwork volumes and calculation. And again, all these things can be done via LiDAR, photogrammetry. There's other sensors like multispectral, SAR, synthetic aperture radar, and a combination of any of those. Like I alluded to before with our partnership with Location and Surveys is, data fusion. So, it's not all about just aerial surveying, but it's about what it can provide and then what it can be used towards and build towards. So a lot of aerial surveying data is used towards final surveys and creating that final survey for final design. So here you can see to the left, this is like a shell map that we created with our crewed aircraft. That's like a typical deliverable. I know it looks 2D, but we do deliver these in 3D. We have been for the past couple years now. And then to the right, you see that same site with the final survey data. So you've got Location and Surveys data. You've got data from hydraulics, from utilities, et cetera. So lots of data from a lot of different parties, lots involved to kind of give us that final survey that we can use for final design. All right, so on to project highlights. So this was a really fun project we've been working on for a while, since about late 2021. This is the Greensboro-Randolph Megasite. What you're looking at is a colorized point cloud. This was actually created from our crewed aircraft. We used similar technology that UAS uses, computer vision, to create this. This was a 1,600-acre site, and we were able to fly this, of course, in a day, and then process this and create the surface within a couple days afterwards. when we were scoping this project with the division and with Ruben, this was a very unorthodox or not typical DOT project. Things were moving very fast. In fact, Ruben told us that, just to give us a perspective, he was stroking checks for $28 million every 2 weeks just for earth movement. We certainly all looked around and questioned our life choices when we heard that. So, after we discussed this, we knew we had to, come up with some new ideas, use some new software, use some new techniques, things like that. So we flew this unconventionally, very tight overlap with photogrammetry, used unconventional software to create the surface, and we had really good results. In fact, we did some comparisons of some volumes on this specific project where we conventionally compiled this. Don't worry, Ruben, on our own time and dollar. But it took us about a month and a half, I want to say, to compile this conventionally. And we were within like 4 or 5% of the volume. So it was very good results. And Ruben and the division and Justin were very happy. Another thing we're able to provide for this project was a cut-fill heat map. So we took that surface and we compared it to the final grade surface that was given to us. And so here you can see, it helped kind of give some executive oversight, help make management decisions, show these in presentations, so on and so forth, and just kind of monitor the overall progress of the construction project. So it was really cool. All right, HN19. So this was another really cool project, and you're probably looking at this like, what's so special about this? This looks like any typical deliverable we would deliver from our crewed aircraft. However, we did this project and delivered the shell plan sheet and DTM from UAS data. So the story is that Location and Surveys had reached out to us, Richard Hensley, and they were in a predicament, and the division was in a predicament, and they needed, this project was moving forward to my understanding, and they needed mapping like ASAP. So luckily they had flown this project somewhat recently and had it controlled, and they were like, hey, can you guys use this and get us this mapping within the next couple weeks? And we were like, well, we've never done it before, but we know it's possible, so yeah, we'll take a stab, we'll try it. So we went to the drawing boards. We came up with about 4 unique workflows, and we were successful, and we did deliver this. You're actually looking at the delivered product. We delivered to Location and Surveys in about 4 weeks. Not record-breaking, by any means. However, we kind of got back together and started coming up. We had a lot of lessons learned, and we knew there was a better way to do this. So we reached out to some of our external partners, reached out to some of the software manufacturer support that we use, and we were able to learn a new workflow where we encompass not only LiDAR, but also photogrammetry and imagery. And we're kind of coining this, this isn't us actually coining this word, but this workflow is called LiDAR grammetry. And so what this allows us to do is use that LiDAR data for the surface, and then use that imagery for any type of collecting, man-made features and being able to perceive 3D, ingest this information into that 3D PluriView monitor you saw, and compile this at record speed. So if we were to do this project again with that workflow, we could do this in 2 weeks or less. I'm also confident that with some more refinement of that workflow, we could get it down to about a week or week and a half. So we're really excited to continue working on this. Continuing to refine our workflow, work with Location and Surveys on making this better, so that way we can provide this service to Location and Surveys and to divisions that need this on DOT projects. So. Yes, so we're still waiting, again, this is not, an official product, so we're still waiting for Richard. We have asked to get some check shots and independent checkpoints, roughly like 25, 30, just to confirm. But we haven't heard anything bad or come back from this, so we're assuming everything's okay. But yes, we should see very similar accuracy, if not better. Not by much, but, again, we're closer to the ground, so it's a little bit easier to achieve a little bit, tighter accuracy, but, within a tenth or two for sure. Yep. All right, so current challenges. We definitely got a few speed bumps ahead. One of the biggest things is not only a lack of, higher education programs across the nation, but just our lack of competitiveness, and this is nationwide in general as it relates to Geodesy. And so there's a little, you can see the bottom left, there's a little screenshot of a white paper that came out, or a paper that came out from a bunch of different professors and big names in the Geodesy world. That came out a few years ago. And then also to kind of just prove that point, you can see to the right, there's only one school, one college in North Carolina that offers a 4-year geomatics degree. This is directly relatable to geodesy and aerial surveying and surveying in general. And the numbers don't lie. On the bottom, you can see typically there's between 3 and 8 graduates per year. So that is certainly a challenge that we've been facing for quite some time. Not only, college graduates, but just finding folks with 20, 15 years of experience or more is also another challenge too. So cost of equipment, these drones are expensive. I know Mark's going to show some drone that one of their external partners flew recently. Is $500,000 for the whole entire setup, and that doesn't probably touch, the software, maintenance, all the other, pieces you don't really see, but you got to think about. So that's definitely a challenge. And then just the rapid change in technology. The phones in most of our pockets, they come out with a new phone every 6 months to a year, and it's just changing rapidly. And we're seeing the same thing in our industry as well too. So, and it makes it exciting though. On to the good. There's a lot of exciting times ahead. Jason mentioned AI. I think with the use of the dual frequency and hybrid sensors, this is really going to bring AI to the forefront in aerial surveying. In fact, some of our external partners are already using AI to do surveying and create topographic maps. So it's here. We just need to figure it out. Augmented reality as well is another thing that we've been seeing. I was at a conference a couple years ago in Denver, and I put on a Leapfrog. I don't know if you've heard of a Leapfrog, but it's augmented reality, and you've got a little computer. It's kind of the size of like a small little square. And I put it on, and this gentleman, I was inside a big cafeteria, and I put it on, and this gentleman, I stood up, and I was walking through a cafeteria just filled with people, and I could see all the structures, inside the walls, and the piping, and electrical conduits, and everything. It was amazing. And as soon as I put it on, I was like, wow, I could really see this being used like at DOT, out in the field. I think that would be a big, really cool use case. So we're definitely seeing that a lot in our industry as well. And then last but certainly not least, my favorite, UAS technology. This just, this is very exciting. I think Jason mentioned we're looking, there was a feasibility study done on kind of a large UAS to conduct photogrammetry and aerial survey missions at DOT, and we're still talking about that. But here's a couple pictures in the bottom right. That is a uncrewed aircraft that you see on the bottom right. It's by Scheibel. I don't know where they're based out of. There's a lot of other companies, so I don't know them or anything, not affiliated. But I saw this pop up just a couple days ago. They've been teaming up with Regal, and Regal is one of the bigger players in LiDAR sensors. And so they did this about a year ago, and it seems like they've kind of been doing it more now. I think this was for a Navy, some Navy overseas that they were doing some test flights for, and they had posted on their LinkedIn. But it's really cool. I think this thing's got an endurance of like 5 or 6 hours. You pilot this from like inside a building, and it could go 50, 100 miles, from where you're flying it. So really cool, really exciting. I really hope that I get to see that in my career. So no pressure, Jason. So. All right, so just to wrap up, I hope you all kind of got a better idea of what aerial surveying is and some of the benefits and products that it creates, as well as I hope you got an idea of kind of some of the products and services that we can provide. But we're not the only ones that do aerial surveying at DOT, so Mark Ward's going to come up here and showcase a lot of stuff that they're doing with aerial surveying, and they've really been kind of pushing the UAS technology to the fullest. So. If you got any questions, I'll be happy to take them. If not, I'll be up here hanging out, and you feel free to come approach me anytime. So, no questions? All right, thank you.
I told Mark that we saved the best for last, so no pressure.
That's hard. That's hard to go behind right there. Yeah. They kept talking this morning. For the last few weeks, we've been talking about getting this together, and then the hurricane hit Friday, and we were all trying to polish our. I'd planned on polishing last week, polishing my presentation and everything, and I didn't get a chance to do that. So I feel like mine's still a little rough, but I've added a few things. But, I'm going to kind of talk from a surveyor standpoint. My background, I've been working at a location a long time, and I've worked in many capacities. My education is in geography, which is unusual for working in DOT. You wouldn't think so, but a lot of what we're doing with UAS and with photogrammetry, there's a lot of connections there. And our partnership with aviation has been kind of short-lived. We never dealt with anything that flew or took off the ground with us for most of our existence, but in the last 7-8 years, we've kind of got with aviation. Great partnership. The guys over there have really backed us up. I feel like it's supporting both ways. And one of the things I wanted to mention about photogrammetry and us is, I've been around. I'm not going to tell you how long I've been here, but I've been around since the 80s. Well, I worked with people that worked in photogrammetry that used to be when photogrammetry and location surveys were. Right now we're kind of sister units, but back then we were just about merged. These guys worked in. They go out and do the photogrammetry stuff in the mountains and stuff. So I've worked with some of the guys that ended up in there, and some of them ended up with us, and we kind of split off. But we tend to work together as almost like one unit. We communicate what they do and what we do. We have to have each other to do this kind of data. And so, like I said, aviation is kind of new with us, but part of the reason the three of us are giving this presentation now is because we see the partnership of working together, and that doesn't mean we're not working with the divisions and the other units as close, but we have a common goal here is to get data to be used for design or for any kind of, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do with this. If you notice, the title of mine's a little different because this is like a hybrid presentation I gave from me and Anthony Edwards gave all around for different things. So hopefully, I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing here, and we'll see where this leads to. All right, I'm going to talk about our capabilities, what we have in location and surveys, what we're doing, and what we're looking at as far as future uses. And like I said, this is not polished, but while these guys were talking, I wrote some notes down, so I'll interject some things as we go along here that they made me think about. Currently, location surveys, we started in early 2020, 2019, getting our pilots, getting licensed, kind of getting our first steps into the UAS world. Partly, we're more of a field type unit. We're across the state. We have 14 offices across the state, not including our sonar and our terrestrial LiDAR unit or group. But we have over 40 Part 107 pilots. As you heard me mention earlier with Jason, all our pilots have got their Part 107 from the FAA. They've been vetted through aviation, and they fly our approved drones. Our current equipment right now is, all of these aircraft came through aviation. So really, they are the owners, but they let us use them. We have 16 Phantom 4 RTKs, one of the Quantity Trinity Pro, and it has photo and LiDAR capability. And then our unit has purchased 30 propeller AeroPoint ground control point targets that we use in conjunction to what we normally do with our regular ground control, which I'll show you here in a few minutes. This is one of our guys out there with their Phantom 4. This is down in Hampstead, doing one of the borrow pits, working with construction and supplementing some of the stuff with them. And since we can't go out and fly, and I know everybody's seen them, but I've got some videos here showing you taking off and flying a little bit. So you get an idea how it all kind of works. See if I can get to the next slide. There you go. Our Phantom 4s, and I'll discuss this a little bit more in depth, but you know, the Phantom 4 has been a workhorse for the last almost 7 to 10 years. It's got a high resolution 4K camera. I mean, the key to this, and one of the things we're really running into a problem finding newer drones, is it's a mechanical shutter. The electronic rolling shutter tends to cause problems. So, you know, photogrammetry, you know, with their background, they give us an idea of what kind of sensors we get, and that kind of camera is what we need. There's calibrations to it because it ain't, you know, none of this stuff is perfect. Each camera is a little different. This gives you some of the stuff on the Phantom. I'm not going to go through each one of them. One of the keys is, as far as Part 107 pilots, and I'm pretty sure some of y'all have heard this before, is we have to have line of sight. I mean, we can't fly, you know, even though it says, oh, it'll fly 4 miles. I cannot fly that drone 4 miles and see it. And you're not really supposed to have somebody 4 miles down the road and they see it. You as a pilot have to keep your eyes on it or have it in visual line of sight. There's ways to get waivers. We have to work with aviation on that to get authorizations and waivers for certain things. You know, there's rules about flying over people. There's rules about, you know, we worry about flying over traffic. And, you know, there's a whole lot of regulations you've got to get around. And try not, you know, it's hard not to skirt some of these rules, but as DOT, we have to follow these rules because if we have one problem, it's going to affect everything we do. So we are very conscious of what our pilots are doing, how they're flying, the drones we're flying. As it was mentioned with DJI, you know, there's a lot of legislation. You've heard all the stuff talking about using Chinese-made drones and stuff. From a surveying standpoint, and that's what I'm kind of here talking about, is, let's be honest. I mean, I'd just as soon have another type of drone too. DJI makes the best ones. There's hands down. But if our government or regulations come along, we can't use them. Trying to find a mapping drone that's American-made or not Chinese-made is very, very difficult. And we are trying our best to do it because, I mean, our fleet's kind of old, but aviation's helping us out with that. You know, we're getting input from photogrammetry. So it's there's a lot going on. We know this technology is moving forward and we have to go, but we're trying to find these drones that'll help us do our job further on. And let's see here, the next slide. We also have the Trinity Pro LiDAR UAS, but it also does photogrammetry or photos. So it's a combination. This is some pictures I took down when we were doing Ocracoke. I know y'all have heard some stuff about the sandbags in the northern end of Ocracoke. We were partnering with Division 1 quite a bit and trying to work with that. And the guys in Division 1 need quantities and trying to get material stuff out there when it all washes away in the sandbags. So this is some of our flights down there. And just like the Phantom, I'm going to give you a shot of how this one flies. This is a vertical takeoff drone, but it's a fixed wing. And it can cover a very large area. Like I said, 2 different types of sensors. Both sensors aren't on the same time, so we have to do 2 missions for every photo or LiDAR we do. I mean, LiDAR one, photo another. But this helps us cover a lot of area, and we're working with photogrammetry to vet the LiDAR and being able to use it on some of our larger projects. Let's see if I can get it to go past my slide here. There we go. So here's the numbers on it with the Cube 240 sensor. They do have another LiDAR sensor that is pretty much the same accuracy, but it gives you a larger field of view. So you end up with, better resolution on side slope type things or edges of buildings. But we're finding out, this gives us comparable to our photogrammetry missions. The data is coming out as far as the accuracies and everything, and I've been very impressed with it. But we can cover a large area with this, and it's been very helpful to add this to our fleet. At the bottom there's two software we have to have that came with this that we run. One's a Planix, which is a Trimble company. It's PAWSPAC. That helps us do with the trajectory. And then we also have to run it through, it's a Cloud Station yellow scan software that generates LAS files or the point clouds that we can utilize as data going forward. I mentioned the arrow points. Now we're getting down on the ground. One of the things that's our major job with anything that photogrammetry asks for, he alluded to it, is doing the ground control. We do this for a couple of reasons. A lot of times, well, every time, we get photogrammetry data or even LiDAR data. If you have accurate control on the ground that this data can see, you can tie it down and it makes the quality go up. And for years, our big flight missions with the large camera, they give us a flight plan. We go out and do ground control. We can even just pick some things on the ground that they can see as the operators that they can pinpoint. That helps us our vertical and horizontal. These came out a few years ago, and this has been very helpful. We go out there with GPS receivers and hit the points on the ground, but these allow us to have even more points. They're basically automatic. You throw them on the ground, you turn it on, and it sits there and starts recording. And then we can post-process it and get centimeter grade accuracy on top of those arrow points. We have been very, very pleased with how these work. They're not cheap, but they do save time, especially on very small areas. If you're doing a stockpile or something like that, you can throw a few around, and you've got ground control, you got ground checks. And that's the important thing we do with our data. We have to have the ground checks, because using sensor data like this, you're using it, you're remote sensing, you're getting data from a distance. You have to make sure you're processing it, that it gives you data that you have confidence in. And from a surveyor standpoint, as a PLS, if I can use GPS or something that's completely different in checking what my end product is, and it gives me that confidence that data is accurate, and I'm confident I can move forward and give it to my clients or my partners down the way and say, this data is good data. So that's one of the important things that we do in working with photogrammetry on getting this data out. Here's a list of the software we currently use in location surveys, and of course there's some other ones, but some of our major ones. For our UAS, we've got the photo module in Trimble Business Center, but we use it for other surveying aspects too. Photogrammetry uses more UAS Master. That's the higher end version of the Trimble Business Center. We're not that high up on using that software as photogrammetry is, but that's their world. We just use the photo module to do quick and fast things, and it works really well. Of course, we're all using ORD. We're also using, we're still doing stuff back in SS4 and, Geopack. But I can tell you this, some of the data, and I ran into this last week, the way we have our seed files now and everything in ORD, it's a heck of a lot more seamless with the data I'm creating with like LiDAR data and some of this photo data from the Trinity and and getting out of TBC. Bringing it into ORD, it's easy. I can put a point cloud in ORD and I have a surface. I mean, it's that quick. The old way, still using geopacking stuff, you know, you got to go through a lot of processing steps. So that's really great for using ORD in the versions we have now. Some of our stuff, one of our guys out west is using context capture, and I'll talk about that a little bit on something you're going to see with the storm related. But we're looking at that, and Hydraulics has been really happy with some of the context capture. That's a Bentley product that works inside ORD, and I know Photogrammetry's looking at it too, to be able to come up with some orthos and just some realistic three-dimensional models from photos. TopoDot, that's a program we use with our other types of LiDAR, but we're utilizing it with some of the LiDAR we're using. It allows us to do line work and different things, and a lot of people like using TopoDot. Drone Deploy is something that's cloud-based. We've used it a little bit, and there we're kind of phasing that out a little bit, but it's still useful at times. For the LiDAR, Cubase is our flight software. I mentioned it before, Planix POSPAX for our trajectory to get it accurate as far as where the UAS flew, and it helps with our accuracy. YellowScan converts it to a LAS file. Trimble Business Center, we use that for our checks. TopoDot for the line work, and then eventually we get it into ORD. What have we been doing, and what is our usage, and some project highlights. Jackson County Airport, and I think this is a video. We went up there, and just looking at this picture, if you look at it, you see the end of the runway, and you notice where the hangar is, and across from the hangar, there's kind of a little area that looks like it's kind of cut out there. And so we flew this with LiDAR. But I got, you know, this is a point cloud too, so let's see if this works. Hoping it'll work. Oh, there we go. So there's our point cloud that we got, and then I made a surface using TBC, and as you can see now, we took the trees out of it, and you can see where we got some slide movement. And somebody mentioned something, so we looked at the other side, and where the road comes up, there's another area that is harder to see from just the trees being on it. This mission took us about 20 minutes to fly, and we got this kind of data out of it. And this is the kind of things that we're looking at, because they've had a guy up there for years, you know, monitoring that, and they have to crawl down and take shots and stuff. And, you know, traditional photogrammetry with the trees, I mean, you can get some, but you can't get underneath it. But this LiDAR, and the thing about LiDAR, the nice thing about LiDAR, and I didn't mention this earlier, is as long as that laser can get through the vegetation and see the ground, the AI and the different software here, we can filter the trees out. And I'll show you something of that in here in a minute. But this was a really neat little project that we just, and we found another area. So it was fun. It was fun flying it. It was a little windy that day. In fact, that one where you saw the drone taking off vertically, that was that we were at that airport. As I mentioned, we do bar pits. We've been doing some bar pit surveys. Photogrammetry is doing some. We're doing some different things with them on that to help our construction. I know some of the divisions have their own drones, and then some of the contractors are doing theirs, checking quantities. And one of our projects that we're doing down at Southport, real interesting, we got a former DOT employee that's with a consultant down there. But our office is flying the pits and doing intermediates. And we all know about, you know, the yardage in the trucks, and they do truck counts and everything. They were doing truck counts and did the first mission, and they figured out how much they the difference was between their truck count volume and their truck, and the drone says how much, our drone flight said how much volume they took out. Well, this guy's an old surveyor, so he kind of tweaked it to where he kind of said, well, if this many trucks went out, this is the volume they're carrying. The next flight they did, the first flight was out, I don't know the percentage, but it wasn't as close as they'd like. After he tweaked it and kind of said, well, on average, this truck should be carrying this, the next time the yardage almost matched. And then beyond that, every time he did it, he kind of did. So he got a feel for what the backhoe operators were loading on their trucks. And once they kind of tweaked it, they felt like they were getting a whole lot better idea of how much volume was coming out of that. And this is the one I'm talking about is a 50-acre site. It takes them about 40 minutes to fly. But the intermediates, they're having a lot of luck with that. And that's stuff we're working with photogrammetry on a lot, and hoping. And that way, we're getting good pay estimates for our contractors, and DOT's happy. So, and then here's a screenshot of that same pit in TBC with a surface. One of the projects we worked with photogrammetry on, this was with Aviation came out there with us. One of the drones that they have, we flew the first part of this photogrammetry-wise, was Aviation has a Wingtra, and it has LiDAR capability, but we don't have a LiDAR sensor with it. We just have it with our Trinity. But we've flown this one with Aviation. They've helped us with this, photogrammetry and location and surveys. And this was for quantities down at Waxhaw. I think I flew it with LiDAR, and to give you an idea, this is Cloud Station, and the top left one there shows it with the trees, and the bottom shows without the tree, with just filtered out the trees, and that's just what Cloud Station says that it identified as ground points. Sometimes the classification don't work all the way. You got to tweak it and got to look at it and add things and take things out. But it gives you a good idea. And for this one, we don't really need all the tree area. It was just a little road area around there. But this was quick and easy. You notice there's a couple of areas that it kind of blacked out in there. It's just, sometimes you get too much vegetation that it blocks it out, or water. LiDAR doesn't look at water. So if there's water in there, we don't get a return. Okay, let's talk about disaster response. I don't have a slide here on it. One of the first things I did is we had tornadoes in Brunswick County. I live down toward the coast. We went down there and did some video and photos of that. So we respond. We're there. We can get that information, get photos and videos, and we can get it back up to Raleigh to help them determine disaster type stuff. And, we see it all over the social media and stuff, but a lot of the stuff we're getting is for our internal use, looking at what we're doing, what we can do to help, what things happen. But that information goes to Raleigh and to our divisions to help them out. For this particular one here, this is the sandbag job I was talking to you about. Post Ian, we did a photogrammetry, and you can see the sandbags and how much it washed away, and the sandbags were exposed. And then in February of this year, the same area, Okokoks Dune area is what we call it, they had a nor'easter with overwash, and you can see what the heck happened there. So we can respond to this very quickly. This is about 1 2/10 miles section of roadway, and we're helping them. And part of this is help the division determine how much was washed away and how much material they have to find to get it. We can talk about other things in the mountains and problems they have, but down here on Ocracoke, the only way to get there is ferry, and there isn't a big stockpile of sand down there. So they have to figure out where they're going to get, hundreds of cubic yards of sand to put back there, because all that sand might have washed over a little bit, but half of it, or 3/4 of it's out in the ocean, and they can't dredge. You got permitting issues and stuff. So they need to know how much material they get, and they need to know it soon because, hey, 2 weeks from that time, another nor'easter could come in and tear the road out because they haven't built it back to try to keep it protected. That's a big area, and we got 3 or 4 other hot spots down there that we monitor with Division I. We got a good partnership with them and try to help respond to them. Nor'easters, heavy wave action. When we talk about the disaster response, I mentioned earlier that we all know hurricanes, but, we're talking about flooding events. We're talking about tornadoes. Anything that can happen that DOT can be part of or it affects us, we can help respond to it. Location surveys, guys, a lot of people in the technical services unit lend support to the divisions for any of these types of events. Okay, let's talk a little about Helene. The video I'm going to show you here was taken over the weekend by our Silva crew. I got Brian Barwat and Will. I always mess his name up. Mahida. Don't tell him I said it like that. And then I think some guys from Division 14. I think Nicholas Adams was there with them. Josh, but this is our crew out of Silva, which they didn't get power back and internet back till this morning. But this is I'll go ahead and see if it'll start. This is a video they took earlier this week of this I-40, our small section of the I-40 area. So I thought y'all would like to see some of this. As you can see, the river washed up next to the road, and we're going to see some areas where the road's exposed, some pipes hanging out, and some of the discussions going on. They're worried about drainage and considering the other parts. This is just, you start looking at it and realizing how are we going to build that back and for it to be stable, because it destabilized a lot of the road structure. And you see that pipe there, it's hanging down. It's not necessarily always, some of these pipes are not supposed to be at that angle. So we're having to do, yeah. Some of them might be, but we don't know for sure. But some of them are laying in there. You see road bed laying in the river. Part of the issue, and this is us working with not only photogrammetry. They've been up there flying this with the big plane. And I'm going to show you something else here in a second related to this. But, talking with hydraulics, they're looking at it and trying to figure out, what the pipes. We got to talk with different people to go inspect the pipes because maybe the pipes got pulled away. And the question everybody keeps saying is, wow, we got a lot to do to get this back up to where it's safe for the public to drive on. But quick response on this, but this is about a 2-minute video, but you can still see at that time the water's still coming, but the river had gone up really high, and like I said, I just added this, and I figured y'all would like to see this stuff. We've got, I think today, I got 6 different pilots along with Division I and Aviation's pilots. I'm helping with Riley and who works for Jason, and me and Riley have been coordinating where these guys are going. I would love to show y'all some of the stuff we've got. Nick showed it a little bit in a few pictures. I think Jason showed a couple pictures too, maybe, of what we got. But we kind of don't. We kind of keep it internal. We don't want it to get out, and they have to be vetted and everything before we can kind of show anything. This was already out on social media, so I knew it wasn't a problem showing you this. But we've taken hundreds of videos and images at this point of washed out bridges. I mean, just like I said, you saw a couple of them, but we're talking bridges completely gone. I had a crew get up to Lake Lure, and were able to get some stuff there. Lastly, let's see if I can get to the next slide. There we go. This is what they did yesterday. This is one of our PEF partners, and they've got a hybrid drone with LiDAR sensor on it. They flew 1 mile worth of it yesterday before the rain kind of hit them, but we have already got this group up there working in conjunction with our Silva office and photogrammetry and aviation and all of us together to go ahead and get data so that they can, so that we can start planning on how this is going to be tackled. Give it a second. Here we go. This is a video. This is a heavy lift drone. This drone is a hybrid. It's a gas-powered electric. Like I said, it's one of our PEF partners, and it's got one of the Regal high-end sensors on it. So it's getting millions and millions of LiDAR points. And one of the problems, photogrammetry has with this, I mean, you saw the slopes on this. We're able to fly these LiDAR drones, and they're getting good, we can monitor slide areas with them. We can do a lot of different things. But it allows us to get very good data on a slope. And if we had the sound up, this thing sounds like a chainsaw. It's just crazy.
It was warming.
Yeah.
Oh, I might mess it up.
Nah, don't worry about
Yeah.
it. But it's got the most unusual sound. Most of ours are electric, so all you hear is the rotor wash. But this thing, it's a chainsaw. It's crazy. You talk to Dave Langston, and he's got the video on his phone, and it's amazing. But lastly, I guess I had a few points here I wanted to make, and we're getting toward the end. And if anybody has any questions, a couple of things I wanted to mention, and I've talked a lot about our connection. One of the things, and I'm going to brag a little bit on location surveys. One of the good things about us. Our people, our pilots, we don't have a lot of turnover. We sometimes are having a harder time finding surveyors, of course, like everybody else. But our pilots are getting experience. We have same pilots. I've got pilots of the 40. I mean, they've been pilots for 5 years. They've got a lot of experience. So if anybody in divisions need us, I mean, we're there. We're here to support everybody in DOT. From our pilots, any kind of UAS missions, you got to contact aviation, us, or photogrammetry. As far as any kind of UAS mission, specialized UAS mission, there's a form that aviation has. You can request that, and either them or photogrammetry or us, we can get it disseminated out on who to fly it. One of the last things I want to talk about, we're talking about data sets. Photogrammetry is about the only people that have enough computers to handle some of these data sets. This data, we're getting huge amounts of data with this, and that's great, but that's the problem. That's where we're at. This is where we're going. This LiDAR, photogrammetry has always been around, and it's always important, and we're never going to get away from it, and it's great stuff, but LiDAR is our next step in that. And so many capabilities of what it can do. But the amount of data we're dealing with is hopefully the computer technology will keep going along. But, we got drives, terabyte drives, and you'll fill them up in no time at all. And so that's kind of what I've got. Like I said, it ain't polished, but let's see if I think you got a couple of slides here. And I had some future stuff. We're just going to keep using this. I know our time's getting short, and we're going to keep training. We're using it for all these different types of projects, supplementing that. If y'all have any questions. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, not right now. One of the issues we are running into is what they call TFRs. Basically, around Chimney Rock for a couple of days, they had one basically restricted airspace. Riley's been trying to get us authorization and waivers to fly maybe 100 feet or so. So if they have a TFR, we don't have to. One of the problems we're going to have tomorrow is President Biden's coming down. So we're going to have to look. And we're not the only ones flying. I mean, I heard that, Tennessee Valley Authority's flying, looking at their power lines. We got consultants out there. One of the big problems my guys had, they ran into down at Lake Lure. They got nervous because there was news helicopters and everything flying around them. I mean, we don't want to be up in, even though we're going just a few hundred feet, but right now nobody's really giving us a problem because of the disaster. But like Jason mentioned, the Park Service down on the National Seashore basically warned us, is like, don't be flying. They kind of held a blind eye to us for a while with our Chinese-made drones, but we don't fly them down there no more. We can fly the Quantum, the Trinity, and the Wingtra down there.
I'll add, the biggest concern with the adversarial drone with DJI is that it's synced to the cloud, right? So as soon as that image is taken, others are seeing that image. You can turn that feature off and make it just card accessible, which we've done, but the law and the regulations don't recognize that aspect of the action. So we're doing what we can to prevent data being transferred quickly or incorrectly, but it's not quite as
Yeah, I forgot that you are from down there. I've talked with you before. Working with Walter and Kaz. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, y'all do what you need to do, but don't tell us. But Division I want to shout out to Walter and Kaz. They're up there helping 13. They're doing a great job. My pilots are up there you'll see some things come out about our pilots up there. But we got people that were somewhat affected, luckily not too much, but they've been out working all week. So.
What we're doing with the drones now, we wouldn't have been able to do like even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Y'all, I know there's probably more questions, but we need to move on. But I do want to acknowledge everybody today. This was very helpful. Thank y'all. The QR code's up there just for lunch. It is tight, but there are seats for everybody, so just find a seat. And if you will, bear with me if we could just have a little prayer before we go. Just as we gather today here, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the challenges faced by our Western communities. We're mindful of those working to assess and restore access, including many of our own whose efforts are vital to what we're doing. We're grateful for the food we're about to receive and the hands that prepared it, and for the opportunity to come together. I'm also thankful just for all the presentations and our presenters and just all the work that's gone into this. And we just lift this up to the Lord and ask the blessing upon us. Amen. Thank you.